I'm Debbie Godfrey. Welcome to the Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast.
Hello, today's pep talk is a continuation of yesterday's conversation regarding natural consequences. And just as a reminder, a natural consequence is what will happen in a particular situation if we, the parents, stay totally out of it. So if we don't involve ourselves at all, what's the result of the child's misbehavior going to be? So there's 4 situations where we don't want to use natural consequences. So the first situation is, what is the natural consequence if a child doesn't brush his teeth? Well, if he doesn't brush his teeth are going to fall out. So why is this an exception? Because losing their teeth or getting cavities takes years to happen. And so the result of the consequences are too long range for the child to make a connection between the cause and the effect. And so we cannot use natural consequences in order to teach them that it's good to brush their teeth. We also use this exception if a child is failing in school. What is the natural consequence there? Well, if a kid doesn't have a high school diploma, let's say, their prospects in life are lowered. So the prospects for marriage, their prospects for jobs, everything is lower when they don't have a proper education. And unfortunately, if you tell a kid you're going to marry a schmuck or you're going to have a rotten job when you grow up, it's just too far off in the future for them to make a connection between that cause and effect. So any consequence of your children's behavior that is too long range for your child to make a connection between the cause and the effect, please don't use natural consequences. You'll be able to use something else, logical consequences instead, and we'll talk about that in a future pep talk. The second exception is, what is a natural consequence if your child runs out in the middle of a busy street? Well, obviously it's harm to your child. So anything that is hazardous to your child's health or well-being, you don't want to use a natural consequence there. You're going to need to do something. You're going to need to intervene. The third exception is, what is the natural consequence if 2 children are throwing your favorite lamp in the living room like a football? Well, the natural consequence there would be a broken lamp. So anything that interferes with your rights or the rights of other people is not going to be a time when you're going to want to use natural consequences. You're going to need to use a different type of discipline in that situation. So anytime that the natural consequence of your child's behavior interferes with your rights or the rights of other people. Now, this is the exception that I use for if your children aren't ready to behave properly in a nice restaurant. So if your children are acting up in a nice restaurant, that behavior is interfering with the rights of other people to a proper meal, and actually to yourself as well. And so in that situation, applying natural consequences would mean that you do nothing, that you just allow your child to act out, and maybe the glares and stares of the other people, or who knows if anything is going to actually cause them not to have misbehavior in that moment. But it really isn't appropriate to do that because you are interfering with the rights of other people to a proper meal. And we all know the restaurants that we can go to where we can have our kids be loud and it's okay. And the final exception is, what is the natural consequence if a child doesn't clean up their room? Well, the natural consequence is a messy room. So anything that's a bother or a problem for you, but it's not a bother or a problem for the child, that's an exception. So you don't want to use natural consequences in that situation. So other than these 4 situations, when you look at a child and their misbehavior, you want to look at, what is the natural consequence? What if I stay totally out of this situation? What's going to happen? And if it's something that you can allow to occur, that's not one of these 4 exceptions, do. And it'll be the best learning your child will ever get. It'll stay longer, last longer, and it'll be much stronger than anything that you do. So have a great day and happy parenting.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Debbie Godfrey, owner and founder of positiveparenting.com. I hope you'll go and check out my website and follow me on Instagram and let me know about what you thought about today's episode. Did you learn something new? Were you able to do something different with your children? Did you have a success story? Those are my favorite to share. Let me know. Contact me. I'd love to hear from you. And also, what future topics would you be interested in hearing about on the Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast? Thank you so much for being here and for all of your support. Take care and happy parenting.